Every night, over 280,000 people in the UK have no place to call home. That's a staggering number, and it's rising. What if I told you that the causes of this crisis go far deeper than just a lack of affordable housing? What if the real reasons are things most people don't even know about, and things that can be fixed but haven't been? The truth is, homelessness isn't just about living on the streets. It's about a system failing its people time and time again. From skyrocketing rents to cuts in social housing investment, the UK's housing crisis is part of a much bigger picture. And it's not just about a few unlucky people. It's happening to families, children, and those struggling with mental health. The system that's supposed to help is often the very reason people end up homeless in the first place. But here's the real kicker. It doesn't have to be this way. There are solutions, but they're being ignored. So what went wrong? Why, despite all the resources, are so many people still left without homes? By the end of this video, you'll understand how a combination of government failures, social issues, and economic pressure has led to this crisis, and why it's so hard to fix. You'll see exactly what's keeping people on the streets and what we can do to change it. This isn't just about homelessness. It's about an entire system that's broken and how it affects us all. Number 1. The housing shortage. The first major contributor to the UK's homelessness crisis is the housing shortage. Over the past few decades, the demand for affordable homes has dramatically outpaced the supply, and the gap is growing wider every year. More people than ever before are renting, as home ownership becomes an increasingly distant dream for many. This shift has been fueled by skyrocketing property prices and the inability of wages to keep up with inflation. But the real problem? New homes aren't being built fast enough to meet the growing demand, especially in major cities like London, Manchester, and Birmingham. Private developers, often prioritizing profits, tend to build high-end, luxury apartments, catering to a small percentage of the population. While these developments can boost the economy, they do nothing to alleviate the housing crisis faced by the working class. The focus on expensive properties leaves affordable housing projects neglected or delayed. Furthermore, the cost of land has continued to rise, with developers often opting for brownfield sites or urban centres where land is limited, driving up construction costs. This is where the problem intensifies. The less money available for building affordable housing means that fewer options are available for those in need. And let's not forget about the poor quality of existing housing stock. Many homes are substandard, outdated, and in dire need of repair. This adds another layer to the crisis, as many renters live in unsafe and overcrowded conditions, with little hope of moving into better homes. The government is aware of the housing shortage, but the solutions are slow and inconsistent. Despite pledging to build more affordable homes, progress remains limited. Until the housing shortage is adequately addressed, homelessness will only continue to rise, leaving many without a place to call home. Number 2. Cuts to social housing investment. Another major factor driving the UK's homelessness crisis is the drastic cuts to social housing investment over the last few decades. Social housing, which provides affordable homes for those in need, has been severely underfunded, leaving vulnerable individuals and families with fewer options. The government's decision to reduce funding for social housing has had a profound impact on those who rely on it the most. Once a vital lifeline for low-income families, social housing has steadily declined. The number of new social housing units being built each year is nowhere near enough to meet demand, and many existing homes are in need of serious repairs. The lack of affordable housing means that families are forced to either pay exorbitant private rent prices or, in the worst-case scenario, end up on the streets. Cuts to local authority budgets have made it even harder for councils to invest in social housing. With limited resources, many local authorities are unable to address the increasing demand for affordable homes. As a result, waiting lists for social housing continue to grow, with some individuals and families waiting for years before they can secure a place to live. This backlog not only leaves people in precarious situations, but also makes it more difficult for those already in need of housing support to find any relief. Meanwhile, private developers often face no pressure to build affordable homes, as luxury developments continue to dominate the market. These high-end properties cater to the wealthy, while social housing remains neglected. The focus on expensive housing options for the few rather than affordable homes for the many perpetuates the divide between the rich and the poor. Ultimately, the cutbacks in social housing investment have exacerbated the homelessness crisis, leaving more and more people in a vulnerable position. Until the government prioritizes social housing once again, the situation will only worsen, with thousands of people left without a stable and secure place to live. Number 3. Rising rent prices. One of the most pressing issues contributing to the UK's homelessness crisis is the unprecedented rise in rent prices. Over the past few years, private rental prices have soared to unsustainable levels, making it increasingly difficult for many to keep up with the cost of living. Rent inflation has outpaced wage growth by a significant margin, with rents rising faster than salaries. For individuals and families already living paycheck to paycheck, this means that more and more of their income is going towards housing costs, leaving them with little money for other essentials like food, healthcare, or transportation. In some areas, especially in major cities like London, rent now takes up more than 50% of a person's monthly income, an unsustainable situation for many. The demand for rental properties in urban areas has never been higher. As home ownership becomes increasingly unattainable, more people are relying on the private rental market. However, landlords have the power to raise rent prices without much regulation, often exploiting the high demand to secure a steady income. This creates a situation where many renters are pushed to their financial limits and have little to no choice but to accept higher rents or face the risk of eviction. In addition, short-term rentals, like those offered through platforms such as Airbnb, have exacerbated the issue. Property owners, motivated by the potential for higher profits, choose to rent their properties to short-term tourists rather than long-term tenants. This reduces the availability of rental homes for locals, driving prices even higher and making it harder for people to find affordable places to live. The lack of affordable housing stock combined with rising rents is creating an environment where many people face homelessness or are forced to live in overcrowded, unsafe conditions. Unless rent prices are regulated or more affordable housing is built, the rising rent crisis will continue to fuel homelessness across the UK. Number 4. Benefits and welfare cuts. Another critical issue contributing to the UK's homelessness crisis is the cuts to benefits and welfare support over the past decade. Universal credit, in particular, has been a major focus of controversy, with many arguing that the current welfare system is no longer enough to keep vulnerable individuals and families from falling into homelessness. Welfare cuts have hit the poorest and most vulnerable the hardest. Once, benefits such as housing allowance helped people meet their rent payments, ensuring they could stay housed even when income was low. However, over time, reductions in benefits and cuts to other forms of support have forced many to choose between paying for rent or basic living expenses like food and utilities. The introduction of universal credit was meant to simplify the system, but for many, it has only made matters worse. The waiting time for first payments can be up to 5 weeks, leaving individuals without any financial support during a crucial period. This delay has caused financial strain, forcing some into debt or arrears, which can lead to eviction and ultimately homelessness. Additionally, the freeze on benefit levels has meant that they no longer cover the rising cost of living. As rent prices increase and inflation continues to impact the economy, those relying on welfare have seen their purchasing power diminish significantly, making it harder to meet basic needs. For those with complex needs, such as those experiencing mental health issues, disabilities, or substance abuse problems, these cuts are even more damaging. The lack of adequate financial support, combined with reduced access to support services, leaves these individuals vulnerable to losing their homes. Ultimately, cuts to welfare create a vicious cycle where those already in precarious situations are pushed even further towards homelessness. Until the government restores adequate welfare support and ensures that benefits meet the real cost of living, homelessness will continue to rise, leaving many with no way out of their struggles. Number 5. Mental health issues. A significant and often overlooked factor in the UK's homelessness crisis is the impact of mental health issues. It's a well-established fact that mental health problems, such as depression, anxiety, and more severe conditions like schizophrenia, are both a cause and a consequence of homelessness. Unfortunately, the lack of adequate mental health support only exacerbates the problem, making it harder for those struggling to escape homelessness. The link between mental health and homelessness is not just theoretical. Studies show that a significant portion of homeless individuals suffer from some form of mental health condition. For many, untreated mental health problems can lead to a loss of employment, difficulty maintaining relationships, and an inability to properly manage daily responsibilities. These factors can quickly spiral into financial instability and eventually lead to housing insecurity. What makes the situation worse is the insufficient access to mental health services. While there is a growing awareness of the importance of mental health, the NHS and local services are often overburdened and underfunded. As a result, many individuals with mental health issues don't get the support they need, either because of long waiting times or a lack of specialised services. This leads to a cycle where individuals who might otherwise be able to stabilise their lives remain on the streets, struggling with untreated conditions. Moreover, mental health problems can hinder a person's ability to access housing. The stigma surrounding mental health often means that landlords and housing providers are reluctant to rent to individuals with a history of mental illness, further limiting options for those in need of stable housing. The lack of integrated services, where mental health support is paired with housing assistance, also contributes to the issue. Homelessness is not just about finding a roof over your head, it's about addressing the root causes of homelessness. Until proper mental health services are prioritised, many will continue to fall through the cracks, with homelessness remaining a permanent challenge. Number 6. The stigma of homelessness. The stigma of homelessness is one of the most insidious and persistent barriers preventing individuals from escaping the streets and rebuilding their lives. Homelessness is often viewed through a lens of judgment, with society blaming individuals for their circumstances rather than understanding the complex factors that lead to their situation. This societal stigma not only makes it harder for homeless people to access resources, but also isolates them, making their situation even more difficult to overcome. For many, being homeless is not just about losing a home, it's about losing dignity and becoming the subject of discrimination. Homeless people are often seen as other or undeserving, and this perception can significantly impact their mental health and self-worth. The negative stereotypes associated with homelessness, such as the idea that all homeless individuals are lazy or unwilling to work, create barriers to seeking help as people fear being judged or rejected. The stigma surrounding homelessness also affects their ability to find employment and secure housing. Many employers are hesitant to hire individuals with a history of homelessness, as they may associate them with unreliability or unfit for work. Similarly, landlords are often unwilling to rent to people who have been homeless, fearing damage to their property or disturbance to their tenants. This discrimination makes it almost impossible for homeless individuals to regain stability, as they are continuously excluded from opportunities that could help them rebuild their lives. Furthermore, the lack of public awareness about the root causes of homelessness fuels this stigma. People often fail to realise that homelessness is caused by a combination of factors, including mental health issues, substance abuse, economic hardship, and systemic failures. Until society addresses the misunderstanding and discrimination surrounding homelessness, the stigma will continue to trap individuals in a cycle of poverty and exclusion, making it even harder for them to escape homelessness. To effectively combat homelessness, we must work to reduce the stigma, shift public perceptions, and treat homeless individuals with compassion and respect. Only then can we create an environment where everyone has the opportunity to rebuild their lives. Number 7. Substance abuse. Another crucial factor behind the UK's homelessness crisis is the relationship between substance abuse and housing instability. The link between addiction and homelessness is well documented, with many individuals turning to drugs or alcohol as a coping mechanism for the trauma of homelessness or difficult life circumstances. However, substance abuse can also be the root cause that drives individuals into homelessness in the first place. For those struggling with addiction, it can lead to a loss of employment, an inability to maintain social relationships, and even eviction. The cycle of addiction often results in individuals becoming unable to sustain a stable living situation, whether it's due to missed rent payments, neglected responsibilities, or problematic behaviour associated with substance use. This makes it even harder for them to escape homelessness once they are already on the streets. Furthermore, the availability and accessibility of rehabilitation services are insufficient to address the demand. Drug and alcohol treatment programs are often underfunded, with waiting lists that can be months long. For individuals battling addiction, the lack of timely support can lead to escalating problems, making it more difficult to access housing or even stay sober. Unfortunately, the housing market itself can exacerbate the issue. Landlords and housing providers are often reluctant to rent to individuals with a history of substance abuse, fearing property damage or disruptive behaviour. This makes it extremely difficult for people who have recovered or are trying to recover from addiction to find permanent housing. Moreover, once an individual becomes homeless, the availability of safe housing options for people with substance abuse problems is minimal. Many shelters do not have the capacity to address both addiction and housing needs, leaving people to fall through the cracks. To break this cycle, there needs to be a comprehensive approach that combines housing-first policies with substance abuse treatment. Without this, the cycle of homelessness and addiction will continue to persist, leaving many trapped in a never-ending struggle. Number 8. Lack of social support networks. One of the most significant, yet often overlooked, reasons behind the UK's homelessness crisis is the lack of social support networks. In today's increasingly isolated society, many individuals who find themselves on the brink of homelessness have no safety net to catch them when they fall. Strong social connections, family, friends, or community support are crucial in helping people navigate through life's challenges. When these networks are absent or broken, people are far more vulnerable to becoming homeless. The breakdown of traditional family structures, combined with increasing social isolation, means that many individuals who face hardships like job loss, relationship breakdowns, or financial difficulties have no one to turn to. Without a support system, they are left to fend for themselves, often struggling to find work or secure housing on their own. For many, even when they want to reach out, shame or pride prevents them from asking for help, leaving them trapped in loneliness and vulnerability. The absence of a community network also makes it harder for individuals to find stable employment or housing. Without friends or family to help with emergency funds, or even to vouch for their character to potential employers or landlords, people experiencing homelessness are often left with fewer opportunities to get back on their feet. Moreover, government services designed to help the homeless often operate on a transactional basis, offering temporary solutions without the long-term support needed to help people rebuild their lives. These services may provide short-term shelter or emergency financial aid, but they rarely address the core issue of social isolation. To solve this issue, we need to focus on rebuilding community ties and offering more holistic support systems. This means not just providing temporary housing or financial aid, but also investing in mental health services, community building initiatives, and long-term social services that help individuals reconnect with society. Until this happens, the lack of social support will remain one of the biggest obstacles in the fight against homelessness. Number 9. Government inaction and policy failures. Perhaps one of the most frustrating aspects of the UK's homelessness crisis is the government's inaction and policy failures. Despite the growing visibility of homelessness on the streets, the response from policymakers has often been slow and disjointed, lacking the urgency and coherence needed to make a real difference. While there have been some attempts to address the issue, these efforts are often piecemeal, reactive, and insufficient to tackle the root causes of homelessness. For years, policy decisions have been made without considering their long-term impact on housing affordability, social support services, and the well-being of vulnerable populations. The government's focus on short-term fixes, like emergency shelters or temporary housing, ignores the need for long-term, sustainable solutions that address both the availability of affordable housing and the social factors contributing to homelessness. Without such a strategy, temporary solutions only prolong the problem, leaving people stuck in a cycle of transient shelter without ever achieving true stability. One significant policy failure is the lack of affordable housing construction. The government has failed to invest adequately in social housing, leaving the private rental market to take up the slack. However, the private sector is driven by profit, not the public good, resulting in an overabundance of high-end properties and a scarcity of affordable homes. This discrepancy has led to a situation where too many people are either priced out of the housing market or forced to live in overcrowded, unsafe conditions. Furthermore, welfare policies have also contributed to the crisis. Cuts to benefits and housing allowances have pushed many vulnerable individuals further into poverty, making it even harder for them to keep a roof over their heads. The government has failed to restore adequate benefits to match the rising cost of living, leaving thousands of people struggling to survive. Until the government commits to a comprehensive, long-term strategy that prioritizes affordable housing, adequate welfare support, and holistic solutions to homelessness, the situation will continue to worsen. Policy failures and government inaction remain at the heart of the UK's homelessness crisis, and until these are addressed, homelessness will continue to rise. Number 10. The impact of welfare reforms. The UK's welfare reforms, particularly the introduction of universal credit, have had a profound impact on homelessness. When universal credit was rolled out, it combined 6 separate benefits into one monthly payment, designed to simplify the system. However, it has inadvertently caused significant financial instability for many low-income individuals and families. One of the most critical issues is the delay in payments. For many, the waiting time for the first payment can be up to 5 weeks. This leaves families vulnerable, especially when they're already living paycheck to paycheck. For those relying on their benefits to pay rent, this delay often results in arrears, leading to eviction. In fact, research shows that those on universal credit are twice as likely to fall behind on rent compared to those on the previous system. Another problem is the reduction in benefit levels. Universal credit is calculated based on the assumption that individuals can work more hours or earn more money. But for many, especially those with part-time jobs or irregular hours, this expectation doesn't align with reality. As a result, they are often left with insufficient funds to cover basic living costs, let alone rent. In addition, the benefit cap, which limits how much families can receive, means that some individuals and families have no choice but to live in overcrowded or unsuitable housing or even sleep rough. These welfare reforms, although intended to streamline the system, have created a financial cliff edge for many, pushing vulnerable individuals closer to homelessness. Welfare cuts and delays are not just abstract issues. They are deeply connected to the increase in homelessness across the UK. The homelessness crisis in the UK is a complex web of issues, but it's not beyond repair. We've looked at the root causes, from skyrocketing rent to cuts in social housing, and it's clear that real lasting change is possible if we act now. Whether it's better policy, more investment in housing, or just a shift in how we view homelessness, there are steps we can take to break this cycle. But the conversation doesn't end here. What do you think can be done to solve this crisis? Are there solutions you believe could make a real difference? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We genuinely want to hear your perspective, as every voice matters in this fight. We pour our hearts into creating these videos to spark meaningful conversations, and we'd love to have you as part of our community. Just one click to subscribe helps us bring you more insightful content like this. Your support means everything to us, and it's how we continue bringing these important issues to light. Let's keep the conversation going. Subscribe now and join the movement.